Hi. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy writing something like this, pouring his life onto a screen for strangers to read and dissect. But here I am. My name is Daniel, am 37 years old, and have been married, or rather, I was married for 12 years. When people meet me for the first time, they often say I look younger than my age. Maybe it's my tendency to joke too much, or the fact that I still run 3 times a week and haven't surrendered to the inevitable dad bod most of my friends wear proudly. I've always considered myself a pretty normal guy. I work in at nothing glamorous, but steady, and have never been the type to chase drama. My life was simple, predictable, and for a long time, I thought, happy. Her name was Emily. She was 3 years younger than me, 34 now, though in my head I still picture her at 22 when we first met at a mutual friend's barbecue. She had this messy ponytail and a faded university hoodie, and yet somehow she managed to look more captivating than anyone else there. We clicked instantly, the kind of click where conversations flow without effort, where inside jokes are born within minutes. Within a year, we were living together. By the third, I had proposed. She cried when I did, and I swear in that moment, I believed in forever. If I look back now, trying to find the first crack, it's difficult. Life has a way of hiding fractures until the whole structure collapses. We built a routine together: jobs, bills, weekend brunches, occasional vacations when money allowed. I thought those small things, the comfort of familiarity, were the bedrock of a marriage. Maybe they were, but it turns out they weren't enough. The first signs were subtle. She started working later, claiming new projects were demanding her time. I didn't question it at first. Emily was ambitious, always more driven than me, and I admired that. I wanted to support her, but late nights turned into weekends at the office. Then there were the sudden trips, client meetings, she'd say. I'd kiss her goodbye at the door, still trusting, still oblivious. Looking back, the most painful thing isn't even the act itself. It's how ordinary everything felt while my world was being dismantled behind my back. We still had dinner together when she was home, we still made plans, we still laughed sometimes. I didn't realize that what I thought was laughter was just her keeping up appearances. I found out the truth in the worst possible way. Not through a guilty confession, not even through suspicion, but through pure accident. It was a Saturday morning. She had left her laptop open on the kitchen table before rushing to the gym. I wasn't snooping, God. I wish I had been. At least then I'd feel some ownership over what I discovered. I just wanted to look up a recipe. When I touched the trackpad, the screen lit up, and there it was, an open email, his name signed neatly at the bottom. Words that punched me in the gut before I could even process them. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you, counting the hours until I see you again. My hands went cold. For a moment, I told myself it had to be a mistake, spam, anything but what it so obviously was. But as I scrolled, denial evaporated. There were weeks of correspondence, descriptions too vivid, too intimate, photographs. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, sending pieces of herself to someone else. I don't remember breathing. I don't remember sitting down. But suddenly I was at the table, staring at her words, my stomach twisted in knots. My first instinct wasn't even anger, it was shame. As if I had done something wrong, as if my failure had caused this. When she came home, flushed from her workout, water bottle in hand, I couldn't hold it in. I asked her straight. No build-up, no hesitation. Just, who is he? Her face went pale instantly. That was all the answer I needed, but she gave me more. She stammered, denied, tried to twist it into something else, but eventually the dam broke and the truth spilled out. His name was Mark, a colleague. It had been going on for 6 months. 6. Half a year of my life spent loving someone who was elsewhere. I wish I could say I yelled, that I slammed doors or delivered some righteous speech about betrayal. But I didn't. I just sat there, numb, listening to her justify, apologize, cry. She said she still loved me, that it was a mistake, that she never meant to hurt me. I almost laughed at that. Never meant to hurt me. Every kiss she gave him was a knife in my back. The days that followed are a blur. I moved into the guest room. We had long, tearful conversations that went nowhere. She begged me to go to therapy with her, to try to repair what she had broken. I considered it, I really did. -1 years is a long time to throw away. But every time I looked at her, I saw his hands on her, his lips where mine had once been. I couldn't wash it out of my mind. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I had agreed, against my better judgment, to give counseling a shot. But before our first session, I caught her texting him again. She swore she had ended it, swore she was committed to me, yet there it was, proof on her phone that I was second choice in my own marriage. That night, I told her I was done. For good. I don't think there's a manual for what to do when your marriage ends in betrayal. People like to think they know. Friends and coworkers, when they eventually hear the story, give the usual advice. You're better off without her, or time heals everything. But the reality is far messier. It's like being in a car crash and then expected to just walk it off because you technically survived. After I told Emily I was done, the silence between us was suffocating. We still lived in the same house for a few weeks because neither of us had a plan. Imagine sharing a kitchen with someone you once kissed goodnight, now reduced to awkward nods and polite questions about bills. It was unbearable. I could hear her crying sometimes through the thin walls of our house, and part of me wanted to go to her, to comfort her out of old habit. But another part, the part that had read every sordid email, kept me rooted in place. The first night I slept outside the house, I sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes before starting the engine. My heart felt like it was being torn out of my chest. I had no destination in mind, no grand plan for escape. I just drove. Eventually, I checked into a cheap motel with peeling wallpaper and a buzzing neon sign. It was the kind of place you'd expect affairs to happen, ironically. I lay awake on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had gone from wedding vows to this. One of the strangest parts was how normal the world kept looking. I'd go to work, answer emails, attend meetings, and no one knew. Nobody could tell that my life was in ruins just by looking at me. I found that disconnect unbearable. I wanted to scream it sometimes. My wife cheated on me. My marriage is over. Instead, I nodded along while coworkers complained about traffic or talked about their kids' soccer games. Eventually, word spread among our closest friends. Some were supportive, others awkward. A few avoided me entirely, probably not knowing what to say. But the worst part was how divided the responses were. Some tried to excuse her, she must have been unhappy, or maybe you two can still work it out. I wanted to shake them and shout, she betrayed me. She lied to me. Isn't that enough? But betrayal, I realized, is strangely easy to minimize when it isn't happening to you. I started spending a lot of time alone. Too much time, probably. I drank more than I should have, sat in bars staring into glasses of whiskey I barely tasted. I scrolled through old photos on my phone like I was trying to solve some mystery, searching for clues of when she started slipping away. Every smile in those pictures felt like a cruel joke. Was she already thinking of him in that moment? Was she lying to me even then? At night, I'd lie in bed in whatever temporary place I was crashing motel, sometimes a friend's couch, and the reel would play in my head. I pictured them together. It didn't matter that I hated those thoughts. They came anyway. Intrusive, corrosive. I'd imagine him saying the same things I used to whisper to her, and the image of her responding to him the way she once did to me made me physically sick. I tried to confront those thoughts by writing them down. That's actually part of why I am writing this here now. At first it was just messy scribbles in a notebook, then long paragraphs on my laptop. Something about putting the pain into words made it feel slightly less heavy, like I was draining poison from a wound. One night, about a month after leaving, Emily showed up at the motel. She knocked on the door, her eyes red and swollen, and asked if she could come in. Against my better judgment, I let her. We sat on the edge of the bed, this ugly, stained bedspread between us, and she begged me to reconsider. She promised she would cut him off for good. She swore she'd do whatever it took. She even offered to let me track her phone, check her emails, anything to prove her loyalty. And for a split second, I almost gave in. Not because I trusted her, but because I missed her so much it hurt. My heart was screaming to take her back, to rewind the clock, to pretend none of it had happened. But then she touched my hand, and all I could see were the texts I had read, her hands on him instead. The disgust outweighed the longing. I told her no. Firmly this time. She left in tears. I didn't chase her. Watching her walk away felt like tearing off a bandage glued to raw skin, bloody, painful, but necessary. Divorce is a clinical word for something that feels anything but clinical. Papers, signatures, meetings. You reduce 12 years of love and memories into property division and legal terms. I never imagined it'd be haggling over furniture with the woman I once pictured growing old beside. But that's what it came to, splitting the couch, the plates, the life we built together into neat little categories. Yours, mine, gone. When it was finalized, I thought I'd feel some kind of relief. Closure, maybe. Instead, I just felt empty. After the divorce papers were signed, there was no cinematic moment of freedom, no sudden sense of being unshackled. It was just me, sitting in my car in the courthouse parking lot with a folder full of documents and a hollow feeling in my chest. People talk about divorce like it's a clean cut, but it's not. It's more like an amputation, messy, bloody, and even after it's done, you still feel the phantom limb. The first few weeks post-divorce were some of the loneliest of my life. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't terrible fresh paint, decent lighting, but it felt temporary, like a holding cell rather than a home. I kept most of the blinds closed, not out of necessity but because I didn't want to see the world moving on while I was stuck in grief. The silence was the hardest part. At night, I used to fall asleep listening to the faint sound of Emily brushing her teeth or flipping through a book beside me. Now there was nothing, just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old building. That silence had weight. It pressed down on me until I started leaving the TV on just to trick myself into believing I wasn't alone. People tell you to get back out there, as if dating again is some kind of magic cure. But the thought of swiping through strangers' faces while my wounds were still raw made me sick. How do you even start over at 37? How do you explain to someone new that your heart was shattered by the one person you thought would never hurt you? I didn't have the energy for that, not yet. Instead, I tried to fill the void with routines. I started running longer distances, not because I loved it, but because it was the only time my brain shut up. When you're gasping for air at mile 6, you're not thinking about betrayal, you're thinking about survival. I joined a gym, lifted weights until my muscles ached, until the physical pain drowned out the emotional. It worked for a while. I also threw myself into work. Extra projects, late nights at the office, volunteering for things no one else wanted to do. My boss praised my dedication, but really, it was avoidance. Sitting in that apartment alone was unbearable, so I chose the lesser pain of spreadsheets and coding marathons. Still, the memories crept in. Sometimes it'd pass a coffee shop we used to go to, and it felt like being punched in the stomach. Or a song would come on the radio, one we once danced to in the kitchen, and suddenly it'd be gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I hated that she still had that power over me, even in absence. The strangest part was the dreams. I'd dream of her, sometimes as she was when we first met, young, vibrant, laughing in the sun. Other times, I'd dream of catching her with him again, the betrayal replaying in cruel high definition. I'd wake up sweaty, heart racing, half expecting to see her beside me. Then the emptiness of the bed would hit, and the cycle of grief would start all over again. Friends tried to pull me out of my shell. My buddy Alex, who had been through a messy breakup himself, dragged me to bars and introduced me to women. But every conversation felt hollow. I'd nod, smile, maybe even get a number, but the whole time it'd be comparing them to Emily. Not in a flattering way, just in the sense that she was still the ghost haunting every interaction. There was one night, though, that stood out. A woman named Sarah. She was funny, sharp, and completely uninterested in sugarcoating anything. When she found out I was divorced, she didn't give me pity eyes or ask for details. She just shrugged and said, "Then you already know what you don't want." That's more than most people can say. Something about that hit me. It wasn't the start of some grand romance, but it was the first time I saw a future where Emily wasn't the center of my story. But recovery isn't linear. Some days, I felt strong, like I was finally reclaiming myself. Other days, I'd see a couple holding hands on the street and spiral back into bitterness. I'd think about Mark, the man she chose, and wonder if they were still together. Were they happy? Was he better than me? Did she love him more than she ever loved me? Those questions had no answers, but they gnawed at me anyway. Slowly, painfully, I started to accept that closure doesn't come in a neat package. It's not something you wake up with one morning. It's more like erosion, time wearing down the sharp edges until they don't cut as deep. And somewhere in that erosion, I realized something important. Her betrayal said more about her than it did about me. For months, I had carried the weight as if it were proof of my inadequacy. But no, I had been faithful, present, loving. I had done my part. She was the one who broke it. That shift in perspective didn't erase the pain, but it gave me back a little bit of my dignity. I'm still rebuilding. I'm still learning what it means to be Daniel, the man, not Daniel, the husband. Some days I think I'm getting the hang of it. Other days, I feel like I'm just pretending. But I know one thing for sure. I'll never allow myself to be blind again. I'll never ignore the small cracks, the subtle changes, the instincts that whisper when something isn't right. Because if there's one thing betrayal teaches you, it's how fragile trust really is. It's been almost 2 years now since that morning when I opened her laptop and my world fell apart. 2 years since I sat at that kitchen table, staring at the proof that my wife, the woman I once swore to grow old with, wasn't mine anymore. If you'd told me back then that I'd get to where I am now, I would've laughed in your face. Back then, I was drowning, lost in grief, shame, rage, all of it. Back then, I couldn't even imagine a tomorrow that didn't taste bitter. But somehow, step by step, I've gotten here. Life looks different now. My apartment no longer feels like a holding cell. It filled it with pieces of me, bookshelves overflowing, photos from hikes with friends, even a beat-up guitar I'm slowly learning to play. The silence that used to crush me at night is now something I've made peace with. I light a candle, put on music, and let the quiet wrap around me like an old blanket. Therapy helped, more than I ever thought it would. Sitting across from a stranger and admitting out loud how broken I felt was terrifying at first, but it gave me tools to sort through the chaos. It taught me that healing isn't about forgetting or pretending it never happened. It's about learning to carry the scars without letting them define you. Dating again was rough. I won't lie, there were false starts, awkward dinners, moments where my brain sabotaged me with flashes of betrayal. But there were also moments of genuine connection, where I laughed without forcing it, where I felt seen. I met someone, no, not the one, not yet, but someone kind, patient, willing to understand the baggage I carry. She doesn't flinch when I talk about my past. She listens. And in return, I tried to show up honestly, without hiding my fears. The biggest change, though, is in how I see myself. For a long time, I thought Emily's cheating was proof that I wasn't enough. That something in me had failed so completely she had no choice but to look elsewhere. But now I understand. Her betrayal was her choice, not my flaw. I was faithful, loyal, and loving. She's the one who broke the vows, not me. That realization has been the most freeing of all. Do I forgive her? Not really. Forgiveness feels too generous a word, but I don't wake up every day with bitterness in my chest anymore. I don't let her ghost haunt my present. She's just a chapter in my story, painful, yes, but not the whole book. Sometimes I think about the man I was before all of this. Naive, trusting to a fault, believing love was a fortress that couldn't be breached. I'll never be that man again. But maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe it's growth. Because now I know love isn't a guarantee, it's a choice, renewed every day, by two people equally committed to protecting it. And if one person drops it, no amount of willpower from the other can save it. So here I am, 37, soon to be 38, divorced, scarred, but standing. I have friends who've stuck by me, a life I'm rebuilding piece by piece, and the quiet hope that love, real love, might still be out there for me. If you're reading this and you've been where I've been, if you've had your heart shattered by the one person you trusted most, I want you to know something. You will survive it. It will feel like the end of the world, and in some ways, it is. But endings make room for beginnings. The pain won't vanish overnight, but one day you'll wake up, and it won't be the first thing on your mind. One day, the laughter will come back, the lightness in your chest, the ability to imagine a future again. And when that day comes, you'll realize you didn't just survive, you grew. So that's my story. Not a fairy tale, not a clean Hollywood arc. Just the messy, painful, strangely human process of losing everything I thought I knew and finding myself again in the rubble. And maybe that's enough.